Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day everyone, and welcome back to Australia's favourite small business marketing show. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You are a motivated small business owner, and we are brought to you by the team at Net Registry who get your online marketing sorted. Now, I am doing this episode from my hotel room in lovely Brisbane as I do a bit of a roadshow for a large insurance company, going around talking to loads of financial planners and opening their eyes up to the big wide world, the big wide modern world of marketing, which is kind of exciting, and I'm getting lots of great insights myself, and I think giving a lot of great insights to those who are in the audience. Now, a couple of things to share today. I have got a mastermind group that I am opening up to you, the listener. And if you want to know more about it, all you need to do is go to deepdivemastermind.com and you will hear everything you need to in order to determine whether it's for you. But basically, it's an opportunity for you to work with me to get your business booming using very clever marketing techniques. Everything you will find is at deepdivemastermind.com, and that is something that is going to start in about 3 weeks' time and go forever. It's going to be like you guys having your own board of directors, and with me sitting at the helm steering the ship, but also using the power of the mastermind group to generate some really good thinking to help grow your business. So go and check that out. Welcome to everyone from the Flying Solo community. A bit of a giggle last week about their National Nude Day. That is still happening, December 7. Check out the show notes for what that involves. But basically, it involves working in your birthday suit for an entire day. If you are someone who works by yourself, of course, you wouldn't want to do that amongst your working colleagues. Now, I am going to get stuck right in to this interview because it's a really, really good interview with an author, a best-selling author, Valerie Khoo, who has written a book called Power Stories. Now, Power Stories is a book about the 8 stories that every business must tell in order to engage with their customers. And this is a real how-to interview. And I know how much you listeners love the how to do stuff, because I know a lot of the interviews I do on the show, people say, they're really inspiring. They move you into action. Well, this is going to move you into action. It's also going to show you how to identify and create those power stories that are within you and your business. Now, there's a couple of freebies involved here. The publisher has very kindly offered the first 10 listeners to email her being the publisher, her name's Katie, a request for a free book. So you've got to love that. And the details for that are on the show notes on smallbusinessbigmarketing.com on episode 109's show notes. So that's for the first 10. You get a freebie. If you buy the book through the link on the show notes as well, Valerie has also made a very kind offer to send you the book, plus she's written a couple of additional supporting ebooks. One is a book that goes through the making of Power Stories, which is a behind-the-scenes look at how Valerie got her book deal, which I think is really interesting. Anyone looking to get a book deal, this is a very good freebie. And the other freebie Valerie will provide if you buy the book through her website is a 5-step plan for building your personal brand. And we know how important it is to build your personal brand. So a couple of freebies there. All you need to do is go check the show notes for episode 109 at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Guys, this is a great interview. I'm very jealous of Valerie because she has made contact with the marketing god Seth Godin to provide a testimonial. She's going to share how she does that, plus a whole lot more. Here's Valerie Khoo, author of the book Power Stories. Valerie Khoo, welcome to Small Business Big Marketing.
Great to be here, Tim.
Lovely to finally kind of meet. Valerie, before we get stuck into the meat and potatoes of storytelling for business, can you share with my listeners what it was like to spend 11 hours with me a few months ago?
Well, I have to say, I do the trip from Sydney to Melbourne and back in the car fairly often. And I thought one day, it's quite a long trip, and I need some music, I need some accompaniment. So I downloaded all of Timbo Reid's podcasts. But of course, I forgot to download any music. So I had the entire trip with not one song on my iPod, but I had 11 hours of Timbo Reid.
Wow.
So you kept me company, Tim.
Okay. Did I perform okay?
You were very good. I was
you.
very impressed, I have to say.
You wrote a blog post afterwards, and I got a sense that, no more. 11 hours was well and truly enough.
I think 10 and a half was just about enough.
I love it.
Then after that, I was exhausted.
Well, thank you. I was wondering why my hosting prices went up during that period of time, but now I know. Hey, Valerie, I am, once again, one other question before we get stuck into storytelling. It's part of storytelling. I am very jealous. I'm very jealous of you. On the front cover of your book, you've got a quote from my hero. Not a quote, a testimonial.
Yeah.
Stories, the ones we tell our customers and the ones we tell ourselves, are the most misunderstood part of marketing. Valerie will help you understand what you've been missing. Seth Godin. How did you do that?
That's right.
How? I want to interview him. How did you get that?
I sent him the manuscript of the book, and he read it, and he was very kind enough to provide that endorsement for the book. So I was thrilled that he A, took the time to read it, and B, then provided that lovely testimonial. So that's right. I sent him the book.
Well done. Did he know of you at all before you sent that to him?
Well, of course, I'd like to think that lots of people know of me, but somehow I don't think so.
But he's checked. Okay, but he's checked you out online.
Yes, obviously I sent him, in addition to the book, some links to my blog and some of the activities that I'm involved with, so that he could basically do some due diligence himself if he wanted to online about me.
Wow. That's a great story. Well done. Well done on the initiative.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise, I have to say.
I am going to follow you up for how to contact him. I've been tweeting him, but I get nothing back. He's not he's completely unresponsive on social media. Very active, but on Twitter he is anyway, but doesn't respond. So I might tap you on the shoulder for a bit of an intro.
No problem. After 11 hours of keeping me company, I think I can, return the favour.
Hey, Valerie, what makes storytelling such a powerful marketing tool?
Oh, well, when it comes to the world of business, it's actually one of the most underutilized marketing tools these days. It didn't used to be like this, but in the last sort of 10 or 15 years or so, there's been a real decline in using storytelling in the world of business, in the world of small business. It's storytelling is alive and well in movies and books and that sort of thing. That's where it's flourished. But what's happened in the business world is that we've become so reliant and on technology, and technology has enabled us to do things like collect heaps of data, analyze heaps of data, put the data in every form of pie chart and line graph and PowerPoint presentation that you can possibly imagine. We have Excel spreadsheets coming out of our ears with many, many pages. And we're always taught that data is king, especially lately, and especially when it comes to stuff in the online marketing world where it's so trackable and you can actually track and analyze and collect every single movement that you do. So we're told data.
How incredibly boring.
Oh, well, it is. I mean, it is effective. It is necessary. But the thing is that we've become so used to thinking that, what gets measured gets managed, or what gets measured gets done. But the reality is that the data, while very important, is only half the story. In fact, the other half is the story framing that data, the context.
Yes.
Because the data touches our head, our intellect, but it's the story that touches our hearts and that resonates with us, that actually changes our behavior, that actually inspires us to buy or to work with somebody. It's that story that actually makes the difference.
What you've just said that touches our hearts, that just plays directly into if my listeners know how big I am on brand building, and a brand is an emotional attachment, and clearly, and people then go, "Oh, that's great, Tim, great definition. How do you build emotion?" Tell a story clearly.
Absolutely. And it's something that, we used to do a lot more of. But in recent years, what I've noticed, because people want to get, email blasts out and want to get a click-through rate open, a high click-through rate.
Yeah.
And as many people clicking on their links on Twitter.
Yeah. You've got to get the retweets and the likes and the click-throughs and the,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while that's kind of important, you actually want to move people. And that's where storytelling comes in.
Yeah, how very, very true. And, one of the things that I notice is that I think we're about to hit a new kind of, what's the story? What's the word I'm looking for? A new period where storytelling comes into its own, because content marketing is just getting bigger and bigger. It's been on a slow rise of recent years. Like I've been example of that, podcasting. I've been doing that for 3 years. People have been blogging, but it's becoming easier to create good, compelling content to share with your prospects and your clients. And that means you can be a little bit more verbose. You're not confined to the size of an ad that you're running or a letterbox drop that you're doing. You can actually, a blog post can be infinite. A podcast can go for as long as you want. A video can go for as long as it gives you time to talk.
And the beauty about that with small business owners is that it's so much more possible these days than it was, say, 5 years ago. It's so much easier to create an online video these days than it was 5 years ago, or to create a podcast, or to create various blog posts. So that's fantastic, because it really kind of levels the playing field for small business owners who can tell their own stories. They don't need $30,000 or $100,000 for big billboards or television commercials. They can tell their own stories in an extremely affordable, if not free, way.
Absolutely. It levels the playing field. It has you punching so far above your marketing weight. It's not funny. My only Seth Godin story, besides the fact that I've read all his books and would love to interview him, is that only this week I noticed that in iTunes, this show's ranking number 1 for marketing and business podcasts. Number 2 was Seth's. Number 3 was Apple. Number 4 was BBC, Harvard Business School, and number 5 was ASX. A, I'm boasting. B, it just proves the point. A little bloke sitting in his home office is creating a podcast I don't have a marketing budget.
Yeah.
I love it.
Congratulations, by the way.
I hope Seth doesn't hear that. Hey, so, okay, clearly powerful. Now, you're quoted as saying every business has a story to tell. In fact, it has 8. Time is limited, but tell us what the 8 are, and give us the one sentence description of each.
Okay, so one of the most powerful stories of all that small businesses should think about is their passion story. Now, the thing is that, of course, that's the thing that you are passionate about, the reason why you went into business in the first place. And if you're a new business, that's probably going to be a fairly easy story to tell, because you're only fairly new and you're still fired up. But if you've been in business for 7 years or several years, and you're stuck in the daily grind, and you're just putting out fires, you know what it's like after you've been in business for a while. Mm-hmm. You're going through the system kind of thing of the day-to-day
ticking the boxes.
Exactly, ticking the boxes, making sure that it moves, maintains, and grows. You can sometimes forget why you went into business in the first place, and it's so important not only to remind yourself, because it fires you up again, but it also reminds other people why you're there, and you're not just a business, but you're actually a person, an entrepreneur who was inspired with an idea and had a fire in their belly and wanted to make a difference in the world.
Hey, can I share? I was going to do this at the end of your list of 8, but I think, and I was going to ask you which story is this, but I already think I know. I'm going to share a paragraph of a friend of mine who recently won a pitching competition. He won Pitch Fest at the Key Person of Influence graduation. Previous listeners will know what I'm talking about there. He's an architect, right, Valerie? And here's the start of his story. From the age of 10, Darren dreamt of being an architect. With a father who was a builder, he has been on building sites since he was 5 years old. Having made the move up from Lego blocks to concrete blocks, he continues to live and breathe architecture. Is that a passion story?
That's fantastic. And you're going to have so much more faith in an architect like that than simply a statement that just said, John Smith won this award and then won that award. I mean, that's great that they won those awards.
He goes on to say that, but I think he captures people's hearts before their heads by telling them the Lego story.
That's exactly right.
Hey, like that. Big elephant stamp from Valerie Khoo. Thank you. Give us what are the other 7 stories that every small business should tell?
There's also your business story, because you often need to tell your business story at a networking event or on the about page of your website, which is often one of the most clicked on pages, but often the most poorly written.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to tell your business story really succinctly. And one of the biggest mistakes people make in their business story is, particularly on their about page, is that they feel that they need to start at the very beginning, as in 1999.
Yeah. Once upon a time.
And it's like, oh my God, but what are you doing now? You need to actually get straight to the point with your business story and then fill in the other stuff later. So, and that's especially your business story in an elevator pitch. Too often I hear people kind of tell me the elevator pitch and I still have no idea what they do. I empower people to achieve their dreams. What does that mean?
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
That's exactly right. What do you actually do? So your business story is so important, and the book has templates to help you figure out your business or to figure out all of your stories, so you can kind of fill in the boxes and then work out.
I like how you've done that. You've got a little password protected area of the book that you can go online and access the stuff that didn't make the book and the templates and all that type of stuff.
That's exactly right. And when you get the book, you get the password and you can find out all of those templates and those extra bits.
Story number 3.
Your customer story. This is one of the most powerful stories of all, because this is the story about how you impact other people, the difference you make in other people's, that is your customers' lives. And it's so important to be able to tell that to prospects, because then your prospects can actually see the difference that you can make. And one great example that I tell is about my accountant. I knew my accountant for years before she became my accountant, and she became my accountant many years ago now. But before that, I met her many times at networking events and, this, that, just around the traps. Always knew what she did. She does tax returns. She does BAS. She does what accountants do.
Yep.
And, she always told me those things that she did. But one day she told me a story, and that story was about one of her other customers, and it was a butcher in a suburb, a Sydney suburb, and it was about how this butcher started off, it was turning over 200,000 or 300,000 or something, and at the time my business was only just starting, so I kind of related, but she talked about how she worked with the butcher and on cash flow, on budgets, on forecasts, and in a very short period of time, like I think within a year or something, it was the butcher was turning over $1 million. And that's when it clicked to me. That's the story that resonated with me, not the menu of services. And then I moved my business over to her.
Absolutely. Is the customer story best being told by the customer, so therefore it is a testimonial, or are you okay to create that yourself as the business owner?
It can be either. It's so important to get the testimonials, of course, for things like your website or marketing materials. But sometimes it's powerful, very powerful, being told by the business owner, because it also, you not only show your impact on the customer, you show the customer's impact on you. And I think that's equally powerful, particularly if it ends up being an incredibly enriching and rewarding experience for you as well. So it can be told by either.
Okay, story 4.
Your pitch story. This is particularly useful if you are pitching a new idea, a new project, or certainly in the new business. Very common in the startup world, because often in the startup world, you're actually pitching concepts that are very new and that haven't been done before. So what's really important here is to figure out who you're pitching to and make sure the what's in it for me is very clear. Because too often I see so many pitches that are just a series of PowerPoint slides, and they roll out the same slide deck regardless of which investor or which fund manager, whatever it is. And it's so important to tweak it, to make sure you find out something, a little something about your audience to get them engaged.
Absolutely. I think one of the great tips that I got recently was when someone does, and the pitch story would be you would offer your pitch story when someone says, "What do you do?" I imagine. And I think the great answer to what do you do is, before I tell you what I do, can I just get a sense of what you do? And then you can frame your pitch story in a much more targeted way.
Great. Yes, exactly. Great idea. And if you don't have that opportunity, say you're walking into a room full of people that you're pitching to, Google them beforehand.
Correct. You are who Google says you are, Valerie.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the next story is the product story. Now, some people have physical products and they often make the mistake of just describing the features, and the specs, the specifications. But it's so useful sometimes to tell the story behind that product and to what inspired you to create it. And maybe you didn't create it, but maybe then what inspired you to stock it or to carry it. I was shopping online the other day and I was looking at some jewelry made in Canada, and I sort of saw this product and I thought, oh, that's lovely, but I had never heard of this jeweler, never bought from them before, and I didn't really think anything else of it. But then I delved a little bit further into the website and there was a video explaining the philosophy and the story behind the products, and that sold me and I bought it online. It's paid me now.
Yeah, well, you buy in. If you kind of deconstruct that phrase, it is what it is. You're buying into their story, their philosophy, and in buying into something, you develop a level of confidence, and out of that comes purchase.
And you become part of the story, and then you have your own story to tell. When I wear that piece of jewelry now and people say, where did you get that from? I have my own story as well.
Yeah. I think it's interesting as you go through these stories that clearly the way these stories are delivered, and I want to ask you shortly how we go about creating these stories, maybe even do a role play, Valerie. We'll see what happens there. But I think one of the things is they're delivered in different ways. This is not all about words on a website or slides on a PowerPoint deck. You've mentioned, video, your About Us page, there might be a book, there might just verbally at a networking function, your brochure, these stories that we all need to construct. And Valerie's book, guys, goes literally through how to do each of these how to construct each of these stories yourselves, but they're delivered in different ways.
That's exactly right. You don't have to sit people down in the room and make sure they're all quiet and then tell a story.
Cup of, hot chocolate and light the fire. Now, let me tell you about my product.
Exactly. You can tell a story in a very short space of time.
Yeah. Well, great point. Another point. We're talking from a sentence to however long. There's no real rule here. It's really the environment in which you're delivering
It. It's just tailoring your story to suit the situation. That's exactly right. And finding the most appropriate way.
We have got entrepreneur story, a passion story, I should say, business story, customer story, pitch story, product story. That leaves 2 stories left.
So your leader's story. Your leader's story is every small business owner certainly is a leader, because you're leading your team, even if your team is very small. You're leading your customers to support you and follow you. And often you're leading a community of people as well, not just your existing customers, but your previous customers who are there to cheer you on. So it's really important to understand what your leader's story is. And especially if you're trying to get people to change behavior or get people to support you, your staff and your employees, and to identify the things within in your leader story that are going to help people buy into your vision and help you grow your business potentially?
Now, I'm not completely getting that one. So where would I share my leader's story? Who would I share that with?
Well, in your particular situation, it would probably be with your community of listeners because you're essentially the leader of the Small Business Big Marketing podcast. And in some cases, you may want to go in a particular direction, like when in your recent move when you got sponsorship and you wanted to move everyone to support that change in direction. Not that it was a big change in direction, but it was certainly, veering a certain way.
To get everyone to go to net registry.
Well, yes, that's exactly right. But also you may then one day decide that you have a particular cause that you want to support, that Small Business Big Marketing wants to support. And you need to actually, you can't just tell people what to do. You actually need to inspire people to take action. So they need to understand your motivations.
Right.
They need to understand why you're doing a certain thing or why you're going in a certain way, whether that's taking sponsorship or whether that's, changing the model entirely. They feel vested in you. They're looking to you as a leader in this particular space. So it's very important to be able to garner support if you are going to move in a certain direction or work towards a certain vision.
So okay, kind of get that. So the leader story around that whole getting a sponsorship, which I did a few months ago with Net Registry, would have been, instead of going, hey guys, got to sponsor Net Registry, go and visit them online, all your marketing needs sorted, I would go back a step and say, you know what, been doing this show, and in fact, I think I did this in a particular episode where I said, you know what, I've been doing this show now for 2.5 years at that point in time. The audience is growing, the downloads are increasing exponentially every month. It takes time to put interviews together. It's starting to cost money.
Yes.
I want to make this. This is our role play, by the way, Valerie. I want to make this. Podcasting is what I do. It's not necessarily a means to an end. I want to be able to produce a show a week for you, the listener, that's going to help you increase your marketing. And in order for me to do that, I needed to go and get a sponsor. In order to go and get a sponsor, I needed one that would resonate with what it is you guys as small business owners do with your marketing. So am I hitting the mark there?
That's exactly right. And I believe you actually did exactly that. I remember on my 11-hour trip, that was one of the stories you told. So you did that instinctively, and that is really important so that people understand the reason why.
Yep. Yeah, got it. Love it. Okay. Story number 8.
There's also your media story. And your media story is the story, obviously, that you tell the media. And it's so important with that story, it's so important to understand what the media wants. And in the book, I break it down to actually figure out the kind of story that different media outlets want from you. And it's so important to tell that story because then you're actually giving them, A, what they want, and then B, they think of you next time because they know that you're a good source or good talent. So it's so important to understand different markets of the media and to tailor your story accordingly.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So example of that would be, why don't you give us an example of that?
A great example is that let's say you were doing a story for Cosmopolitan. Everyone's familiar with Cosmopolitan. So the story you tell Cosmopolitan is an entirely different story to the story you tell Women's Weekly. Let's say you're a nutritionist, to pick something, and you're a 45-year-old nutritionist. Well, for Women's Weekly, they might actually profile you as a nutritionist because you're in that target market. You're in your 40s, but you might talk about how nutrition has impacted your life, but also give some tips on nutrition. For Cosmopolitan, they don't care about profiling you because you're too old for Cosmopolitan. So you should keep your age out of it, and you should talk about, as a nutritionist, as an expert, on how young women in their 20s need to keep in mind various nutritional, issues because of X, Y, and Z. So it's a subtle difference, but it's so important to be able to tailor it accordingly. Otherwise, they're going to not think of you as a useful source.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. 8 stories that every small business should know. Listeners, I'm talking to Valerie Khoo, who is founder of the Sydney Writers Festival, Writers Centre. May well be a festival in there as well. And she's author of the best-selling book Power Stories, with a testimonial on the front by Seth Godin. Very jealous. Now, Valerie, one of the things I say to anyone who will hear me out is that you've got to have a writer on your virtual marketing team, because most small businesses can pick the phone up and get that brochure designed. But when you ask, can you get that brochure written? They look around the room and then sheepishly say, I write it myself, or get someone in the business to write it who's the least busy.
Yes.
And I reckon that's naughty. You've just gone through 8 power stories that every small business should have, and there is some writing to be done. Many listeners are going, the idea of writing those stories, even unearthing those stories, creates nightmares in me. So now some listeners will love the writing and want to do it, but if you don't, what do you do?
I think the first step is to not even think about the writing. The first step is to identify what your stories are. Whether, you don't have to think about whether you're writing it well or you're writing it in the right order. You need to identify them. So that's why the book is so useful with the templates, because it breaks it down and it asks you questions. So you just answer the questions effectively. And then almost all of your story is there once you've answered all of the questions. And then once you've answered all the questions, you can then shape it, and some people may choose to do it themselves, some people may outsource it to a writer, but at least that writer then has the real core story, and all they need to do is tidy it up.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. In terms of getting a writer, and I've talked about places to get writers, where do you suggest a small business owner goes to find a good writer for their virtual marketing team?
I think that you're looking then for a good copywriter that specialises in small business. And there you often find, they're definitely around. It's not like they're rare as hen's teeth or anything like that. And you will often meet people at networking events or who have, or through referrals. And what I suggest when you meet those people, because it's easy to meet the people, but you've just got to choose the right one then. So what's important there after you meet them is get them to send you examples of their work. And you will find, say you're comparing 3 writers, you'll find the one with kind of like the voice and tone that resonates with you the most. And then that is the writer you should try out first.
I often, I use outsourcing sites, and one of the things I do is set a test. I shortlist it down to 3, and then I offer them an amount of money to rewrite an existing piece that I have, to rewrite the same piece, each of them, and it allows me to compare apples with apples. They feel they're getting paid for doing it, so I'm not trying to get something for free, and that seems to work pretty well.
That's a very good idea, yeah.
So important. The whole copy thing, it freaks me out sometimes too. I love writing, but I actually find there's a creative tension attached to it for me that once I break through, it's happy days, but until I get there, I can find every excuse in the book. In fact, I just finished reading again The War of Art.
Oh, yes.
Which is all about deferring things, putting things off. And it's like, oh, my God, that's me when I write. Now, Valerie, first of all, thank you for sharing that, really important information around story. I'm an emotional kind of marketing guy at the best of times, and this really resonates with me because I think we spend so much time pushing quantitative information and sales-driven messages in front of our prospects and scaring them away, that what you're sharing really makes sense to me. Can we have a little chat about the media? Because you're a journo.
Yep.
Couple of questions. Now, you wrote, as a result of spending 11 hours in the car with me a few months ago, out of that came, you clearly identified one of those many interviews that you listened to. You identified Andre from Vino Mofo, which is episode 94 of Small Business Big Marketing, as someone that you'd like to write an article on. So you write an article, and the next thing you know, that article appears in the Sydney Morning Herald.
That's right.
I've noticed this is happening more and more. I interviewed Eugene, or Huge, as he likes to be called, from Aquabumps, Bondi Beach, a few weeks ago. The following week, double page spread in the Herald Sun.
There you go.
There you go. What's happening here?
You're a trendsetter.
I'm a trendsetter. Well, I think it's great. Hey, 3 years, thank God, someone, because I'm actually getting guests now saying, what benefit of being on this show? What's in it for me, which is great. And I can, being able to quote that stuff.
Yes.
You've given us a little bit of insight into how listeners can get their can get media coverage by getting their story right for the media house that they're pitching to. As a journo, any other tips?
I think that it is so important, as I say, to tailor your story, but also to provide useful stats. Now, I know that sounds like I'm a counterintuitive compared to what I just said before. However, it is important to use those stats within a story, and those stats need to illustrate why it's useful to talk to you. So they might be stats on how much investment that you've put in. They might be stats on, the increase in the number of staff you've had from year dot to year dot. They need to illustrate your growth and progress. And stats also give you credibility. But what's more important is for you to be able to have that colour in the story, and that is where your storytelling comes in. Because often I will talk to entrepreneurs and interview them, and they can have stats coming up the wazoo. And after an hour,
one of my favourite words, the wazoo, actually.
And after talking to them for an hour, I have to say to them, I need more colour in this. This is very beige because I need more of the stories. Enough of the stats already, thanks. So you need both, and that's what's so important. And some people often pitch a story to me with just saying, hey, I've launched this new business and this is what it's about, but they don't have any other useful information, and that's not enough. Just because you think it's a good business and you've just launched it, that doesn't make it interesting or newsworthy.
Yeah, okay. And I think too, we should broaden, I think when we talk about getting media coverage, the old school version of that is, how do I get my business mentioned on TV, radio, press? I think the new school version of that is like, guys, the media has changed. Think podcasters, think vloggers, think bloggers. In the last 2 months, I've been interviewed on 4 different podcasts. It's a strategy that I went out and actually both had people asking me and tapped other podcasters on the shoulder. And I think that, that's just a way of building an audience. I was interviewed on a yoga podcast, a couple of months ago. But people go, what? Why would you do that? Because there's hundreds and hundreds of yoga schools, thousands out in the world. They all need marketing.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then I'm interviewed on, an internet marketing podcast. I'm interviewed on a guy who's got a web business. So it's all very different. And the media has expanded, and they've got a lot of hours and a lot of column centimetres to fill.
You're right. And 1 year from now, it's going to change even more. It's going to be an entirely different landscape. And the businesses that don't embrace bloggers, vloggers, podcasters, and other social media influencers are going to be left behind, because there are some bloggers and podcasters like yourself with such large audiences that if you're not tapping into that market, you're nuts. And in fact, that's why I've co-founded another business called socialcallout.com, which basically connects businesses who want to reach bloggers and social media influencers in their niche.
And podcasters, Valerie.
And yes, and podcasters.
Hey, send me that list. I want to make sure I'm on it.
Definitely.
Love it. Yeah, so true. Such an interesting discussion. You've listened to 11 hours of me. What's my last question?
Who's the most famous person?
Oh, I love you. You've done your homework. Who is the most famous person you've ever met?
I've been very lucky to meet lots of famous people because of my work as a journalist. So I guess they include Matt Damon and Britney Spears and Hugh Jackman, but the highlight for me, and this is a story that I tell in the book, on how
roll out the red carpet. Here we go.
On how it came about, was definitely my hero, my dreamboat, John Bon Jovi.
Fantastic! Living on a prayer.
Exactly. So I've been in love. I don't care about exposing my inner bogan.
Nah.
I've been in love with him for many years, and so it was quite an experience when I finally got to meet him and talk to him and spend a lot of time with him. So that was great.
Well, it's funny you should mention the Jove, because I was booked by a speaking bureau about a month ago, and the agent who booked me, in her previous life, was the publicity manager and toured the world in private Learjets with two bands. One was Kiss. The other one was Bon Jovi. And she said, and you can now confirm or deny this, that she gave me a bit of an insight into all the members of Kiss, but she gave me a very good insight and was categorical in saying that Bon Jovi is a gentleman.
Yeah, he's great. He was
listen to you.
What am I going to say? He didn't, here's the interesting part. I meet a lot of famous people, and often the tarnish is gone. I mean, the shininess is gone after I meet them, because not only are they normal people, and that bit's okay. Sometimes they disappoint you. John did not disappoint.
Stop it. Take us inside the tent with John, will you, Valerie?
And dancing on stage at Homebush Stadium in front of 50,000 people. So that was an experience.
No way. Have you got a photo of that?
I wish.
You didn't.
I did.
Did he pull you out of the crowd?
No, we were able to come through sort of a secret entrance somehow.
That is hilarious. That's a really good story. Tell me, one of the things that was meant to be my last question, but I think it's a really interesting thing about famous people and meeting famous people and podcasting. And if you are thinking of getting your own show, which is what I help people with, one of the things that you may well do is meet a famous person. You've met they're heavy hitters, your Britney Spears and your Bon Jovis and your Matt Damons. What is your frame of mind going in to meeting those people? Because you could quite easily melt down and lose the plot.
Yeah, it was everything I could do not to dissolve into being a screaming teenager in front of John, but I kept it professional.
Oh, it's John, is it? Sorry. Okay, John. No. So what is your mindset driving to meet that person?
Actually, having done many of them, a lot of them are media trained within an inch of their life, and they've actually answered the same questions in many countries around the world. So my little game with myself, my challenge, is to find that thing that has never been asked of them before, or to find a key little, tidbit of information that very few journalists know about.
Yep.
And I know I've got it when I see them look up and I see that spark in their eye and I see their smile and they genuinely know that it's a good question and they really want to answer it. So it's useful sometimes to try and ask the different questions.
Yeah, good point. A great point to finish on. Valerie Khoo, author of Power Stories. Thanks a million for sharing all that marketing gold on Small Business Big Marketing.
My pleasure.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview. As I said at the start, many of the interviews that I do on this show, we kind of dig deep into a small business owner who's really cranking it with their marketing. But every now and then we do one of those kind of how-to interviews like we've just done with Valerie, where you really it's almost like a lesson. So I hope there was some learnings in there for you. I was thinking, go ahead and write one of your power stories and post it in the show notes, in the comment section of the show notes for this episode 109 at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. I'd love to hear one of your stories, and Also, in doing that, you'll get a link back to your website, and don't underestimate the Google juice involved in that link. So share one of your power stories in the show notes, and we'll get a bit of a discussion happening around that. Now, remember, there was a couple of freebies involved in that interview. One is the first 10 people who email Valerie's publisher, Katie, will receive a free copy posted to them of the Power Stories book. Details for that are in the show notes. Also, if you do buy a copy of Valerie's book through her website and then send Valerie an email, and that email address will be in the show notes, with your receipt attached, you will get a couple of free ebooks, one of which I think is a fantastic one, which is The Making of Power Stories, a behind-the-scenes look at how Valerie got her book deal. So that's really valuable marketing, a marketing tip in itself. Guys, remember to go to deepdivemastermind.com if you're interested in sitting around a virtual table with me at the helm each week, where we go into helping your business at a marketing level. And I'm really excited by this. It's a mastermind that is going to be starting in about 3 weeks' time. Early December 2012, if you're listening to this at any other time in the future. However, you can join at any time, but there is a very special deal going to those who are foundation members of the Deep Dive Mastermind group. So really looking forward to getting that started, guys. It's an opportunity for me to share knowledge of 108 interviews and 20 years in marketing, and an opportunity for you to grow your business. I reckon that's about it. Don't forget to check out netregistry.com.au for all your online marketing needs, and some absolute rippingly good interviews coming up in the weeks to come. Just had news that my editor Liam won a startup entrepreneurial competition this week with an idea that him and his mate came up with. Going to interview one of them in the weeks to come, as well as some listener questions, as well as just some really successful small business owner interviews coming up, as you would expect, on the smallbusinessbigmarketingshow.com. Until next time, may your marketing be great marketing. See ya.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.